This is one that is a follow-up on last week, but it is breaking today, and it's very exciting. If you all remember, I told you all about Morehouse College, which had given President Nelson now I'm going to mix up the order. Is it Gandhi, Mandela, King, Peace Prize? Those three words somehow mixed up together. A Peace Prize for President Nelson. And they were going to now unveil an amazing new portrait of Joseph Smith, and they were going to hang it in their Martin Luther King gallery. This is a huge honor, right? And so it looks like it has happened. There was a big ceremony, and the headline that's being reported everywhere, this news story, I really watched it take off. In the afternoon, there was one mention of it. I, kind of quickly threw it on the slide. It's everywhere now because the dean who gave the address as they unveiled the portrait said Joseph Smith was Lincoln before Lincoln, prophet honored in Martin Luther King International Chapel. Lincoln before Lincoln. Now that's quite a statement, and that's gotten some really interesting responses. So the article, I'm going to kind of paraphrase here. It says, a portrait of Joseph Smith, the founder and first prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, was unveiled and added to the International Hall of Honor inside the Martin Luther King International Chapel at Morehouse College in Atlanta. The hall features portraits of leaders recognized for their contributions to civil rights, human rights, and humanitarian causes. Now, interestingly, Joseph Smith's portrait, and if you remember last week, I showed you President Nelson right next to Abraham Lincoln. Well, Joseph Smith is now going to be right next to President Lincoln, and President Nelson will be on the other side of Joseph Smith.
It'll be like the first presidency.
I was going to say it's a trifecta. President Nelson, Joseph Smith, Abraham Lincoln. It all works, I guess, in some weird way. It says, let's see, yes, including Abraham Lincoln and a portrait previously added of President Russell M. Nelson. So I'm telling you, this statement, Lincoln before Lincoln, has really kind of gone crazy. Here is the painting. Maybe this is the first time you guys are seeing this. What do you think of this painting?
It seems like it's maybe a mix of the Joseph Smith we're used to and that new image of Smith.
Exactly. That's what I thought too. And the artist who's LDS said she went off the daguerreotype, or went off, the death mask, not the daguerreotype. But as I looked at it, I thought so too. And if you zoom in, you really can see some of that. That's the Nauvoo Temple in the background, which was not completed in his lifetime. That's from 1846, and it has some other symbolism there. But this is the painting that's going to be hanging right next to President Lincoln. So it says, the Reverend Dr. Lawrence Edward Carter, Dean of the Chapel, spoke about Smith's advocacy against slavery and his 1844 presidential platform that opposed slavery, calling his proposals among the most morally ambitious of the era. He also made the statement that Joseph Smith was Lincoln before Lincoln, suggesting that Smith's moral stance predated Lincoln's leadership on similar issues. Church historian Spencer McBride was quoted explaining that while Smith's presidential efforts were unlikely to succeed at the time, his platform was a strong moral vision for the country. So, and I think, have you guys done an episode on his bid for the presidency? I think you have.
I don't think so. Have we, Bill?
You don't think so? I thought that you had. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. Anyway, and we could do an entire episode on what that really meant.
My recollection is that one of the platforms that he proposed was to sell public lands and use the money from the sale of those public lands to buy the slaves from their owners, and then so that they would be free, and then return them to Africa.
Yep, that's exactly right. Yep. So here's a picture of them as they are unveiling it. It says, as the unveiling, the speakers emphasize his teachings on racial equality and human dignity, referencing the Book of Mormon teachings that call for all people, regardless of race or status, to be treated with equality. Not sure if they read an older edition of the Book of Mormon and read some of those other teachings. I'm not exactly sure, but I will say that on social media, as I posted this and saw this around, a lot of people were quite heated in saying, there are a lot of things that actually are kind of the opposite of what he's being honored for. So that's what I mean. It's kind of become a heated issue in just the last couple hours. And what's very interesting to me is that faithful social media has blown up with it, very excited about it. And they've really seemed to be embracing and running with this idea that his anti-slavery views or anti-enslaved people were what got him killed. It wasn't any of the other stuff. It was that. And here's a post from someone who visited Nauvoo and said that she was told that that was the case. So it is very interesting. This may be a whole new emphasis on a narrative that's kind of existed there subtly. But now with this new painting, maybe this is something that people are going to run with. So
if the Nauvoo expositor had been a pro-slavery rag, then maybe that would make sense of the whole story, because he was arrested, of course, for ordering the destruction of that printing press. And then he was held in jail without bail on the charge of treason.
Yes, but what this woman learned in Nauvoo is that he was killed because of his views on anti-slavery views. So that's what I'm saying. It's kind of an interesting idea. And these pictures that I have, Moroni channel, Scripture Plus, they're all kind of really jumping on board this. It's very exciting for everybody. So we'll keep an eye on this. I think this will be really interesting. Any thoughts, Bill, on this painting and what they're saying? Lincoln before Lincoln.
That's absurd, by the way. Joseph Smith was Abraham Lincoln before Abraham Lincoln. And then Joseph Smith campaigned to end slavery during the presidential bid in 1844. Okay. To some degree, there's a grain of truth there. But what is neglected is that Joseph Smith wasn't a serious candidate for the presidency. It's like having the guy who's 17th down on the list, and then you bring him out 30 years later because he did something else in life that was big. And then you drag him out and you go, when he ran for president, he was big on this thing. As somebody pointed out in the comments, he never even left Nauvoo to campaign.
Yeah.
He sent his apostles out to stump for him.
Yeah. How'd that go?
Well, a lot of them weren't around when he got assassinated by John Taylor.
Yeah. They all had to come back to town.
Yes. And they shook John Taylor's hand and said, "Well done, John. We knew you could do it. Thanks for the alibi."
And that was it.
Before Lincoln.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So anyway, we'll see. But there were a lot of heated comments about this on the post-Mormon side, a lot of excited comments on the faithful side. On the post-Mormon side, we had people saying, we got to email Morehouse College and maybe tell them some more of the details.
Oh, they know. I mean, one hopes that Morehouse College isn't the only one being used in this transaction.
Yeah.
By the way, if they don't know, they also don't want to know. They've got some money. Leave it alone. Leave it alone.
Yep. And you know what? This is in Alabama. If anybody wants to go visit or happens over that direction, it'd be very interesting to snap a picture from the gallery. And there are 300 other people in the gallery. I'm not sure who everybody is, but it would be interesting to see that list. Who's included and who isn't there.
I would say the interesting part is, or an interesting part is that Joseph Smith, of course, starting polygamy. Yeah, he did. He started polygamy. Joseph Smith started polygamy and the practice of polygamy in the LDS Church. And Abraham Lincoln, by whose portrait he now hangs, is the first Republican. And his platform was to eradicate the twin relics of barbarism, which were slavery and polygamy.
And polygamy.
And he got done with slavery, and he was turning his eye toward polygamy.
Yeah, and I believe there is a comment where he said it's a stump polygamy that I'm just going to work around right now, meaning he had other focuses, which was the other barbarism, right? It was something that he knew was there, but he was going to, at this point, have to sort of work around it because there was nothing he could do. So, yeah, I mean, they were contemporaries. I think Abraham Lincoln was 4 years younger than Joseph Smith. So, and I did, as I was researching this, there are a lot of pictures where you have Joseph Smith and Lincoln together. Tim Ballard is a big proponent of the history and did Abraham Lincoln read the Book of Mormon and things where they share characteristics. I found some articles, in LDS Living, things like that. So there were a lot of attempts to link Lincoln and Joseph Smith in a lot of
Abraham
different
Lincoln
ways.
Shows up in the Alvin Maker series.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So Orson Scott Card put them together too. But I think if the portraits of Joseph Smith and Abraham Lincoln have to hang on the same wall, they should probably be at opposite ends of the gallery.
Yeah, no, they're right next to each other. And I wonder
because Lincoln hated polygamy.
that's what's so ironic. But in this case, there's nothing to do with polygamy. There's racial equality and dignity and humanity.
Dignity.
So,
always dignity.
Always dignity. That's right. We all know what that's from. If you know what that's from, put it in the comments. All right.